Ava.
And I'm Gia, and we'll be your anchors today for your local Hillsborough teen news.
We have some very interesting topics to cover today, including how to manage your money with financial literacy, how the rate of inflation is skyrocketing throughout the world, and a small report on a local business owner and how they're pursuing their dreams of baking with their small business. And with that, we'll pass it over to our very own Gia.
Thank you, Ava. If you're a teen like me, I'm sure the idea of having your own money is a totally new concept, and how to make use of it is even more foreign. According to annuity.org, financial literacy refers to knowing how to manage your own money. This means knowing how to pay your own bills, how to borrow and save responsibly, and how and why you should plan and invest for college and your future. The first step when you get your first paycheck or a sum of money from your parents should be to open a banking account. This doesn't cost much, usually just $10, and you can open it under your parents' pre-existing banking accounts. You should also open a direct deposit account if you have a job, since it ensures easy money transfer and saves you from interest. Now that you have a bank account, you have the options of checking and saving. Checking is the money that you use with the slide of your card, and saving is the money that is saved in your bank account and is used whenever is needed. Now that you know the basics of finance, let's hop on over to Mr. C so he can talk about how he budgets his money and doesn't spend his money frivolously.
Hello, Mr. Costello. How do you budget your money, and what advice do you give to teens who are new to budgeting?
Well, I have an Excel spreadsheet that I've maintained for years. In it, I keep weekly, monthly, and annual data. I know what bills are coming up. I divide by the number of months or weeks that I need to plan for that. For instance, if I have a car payment that's coming up at the end of the month, I've got 4 weeks to plan for that. If I'm paid every week or paid weekly, as a student might be paid weekly, I would divide that by 4 and you know what the payment is. And if you put your payments into a budget on a regular basis and see it and follow it regularly, you're not going to be in the hole, as they say. You don't need to have your money, come up short. You don't need to come up and be behind on bills. You always want to be on time with your expenses.
Thank you.
After this, money and spending may still seem unimportant, but as teens, however, it will soon become a huge part of all of our lives. If you plan on going to college, the best time to start a savings account and invest just $5 a week is now. According to educationdata.org, 15% of all American adults have an outstanding undergraduate debt. Be kind to your future self and invest and take notes on this segment. Back to you, Ava.
Thank you, Gia, for those tips on education. I know when I started my first job, I had no idea what checking and savings were.
No problem. Now we'll have Ava talking about inflation and what the war in Ukraine and the recent pandemic did to affect it.
If you've been listening to your parents or any older people, you are probably aware of the rate of inflation at the moment. Inflation greatly affects the economy because it lowers the value of the dollar, which means goods and services will cost more, making the cost of living much higher. There are a few reasons for the recent inflation crisis, some being the attacks in Ukraine and the recent pandemic. In 2020, when COVID-19 first swept the world, the global economy greatly suffered. Many companies were sold out and millions of workers lost their job. People could not work confined to their house. According to the U.S. Labor Bureau of Statistics, the jobless rate was 4.2%, which was 2.6% less than the year beforehand. And the WhiteHouse.gov reported gross domestic product fell to 8.9% due to the pandemic. We will now ask our special guests how they dealt with the struggling economy during the pandemic and how it still affects them today. Ms. Olson, who teaches psychology and sociology at Bell Creek Academy. How did you personally deal with the struggling economy during the pandemic?
I accrued a lot of debt. I basically survived off of my credit card, and I think I went into like $4,000 of debt more, like in addition to what I already owed. How else did I struggle? I moved back home, so I was living in Texas. I couldn't afford rent because I couldn't work my job because I had a roommate who had a comorbidity, so I couldn't work for her sake. And then that ended up with me having to move back to Florida. Although the bright side of that is that now I'm here instead of in Texas, which I'm happy about that.
Thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
After the height of the pandemic, many hoped for the economy to heal and become more stable. However, the war in Ukraine has set the world back once again. On February 24th, 2022, Putin invaded Ukraine, causing the largest refugee crisis since World War II. Thousands have unfortunately already died, and the global economy greatly affected. Since the beginning of 2022, prices of food have risen way over usual. This is because, according to IMFblog.org, Ukraine and Russia make up 30% of the exports on wheat. Additionally, Russia and Ukraine were also commodity producers for natural gases and oil, and since they are used in everyday life, the need for them is very high. Without the help from Ukraine and Russia, the price of these items began to skyrocket, especially for Europe. The Household Energy Price Index reported that gas prices nearly doubled and electricity costs spiked 70%. According to OECD.org, persistent inflation, high energy prices, weak real household income growth, falling confidence, and tighter financial conditions are all expected to curtail growth of the economy, and inflation is expected to remain high in 2023 at 9%. We will now receive some insight from our special guest on how inflation has affected them and their family at the time. Now I'm here with Mr. Pyle, who teaches debate, theater, and film at Bell Creek Academy. How have you been dealing with the rising inflation?
I guess I try to cut back in as many other areas as I can. Gas especially has been going up, and I have quite a long commute, so that's been hurting a lot. But other than that, yeah, subscribe to less stuff, I guess.
Thank you for your answer.
Absolutely.
As the economy continues to waver, we can only hope for the best for Ukraine and their citizens.
Thank you, Ava, for that insight. I too wish the best for their country.
Last on our schedule, Vivian will be interviewing a local business owner and how they face the world of entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm Vivian, and I'm here with
Sawyer Walters.
and Sawyer is the owner of.
Sawyer Sweets.
What is your favorite dessert to bake?
I love to bake mini meringues.
And what is your favorite part about being a baker?
My favorite part about being a baker is getting to interact with other people and meet others in the community.
And what is your favorite baking recipe?
My favorite baking recipe is a secret. Can't tell you.
And what is your greatest baking achievement?
My greatest baking achievement is the invention of spicy ice cream.
And how do you feel as a teen entrepreneur in the business world competing against other businesses?
I think it's definitely something that they don't quite prepare you enough in school for, but with a little bit of practice, you can get on the right track.
Thank you so much for your answers today.
Yeah, no problem.
And
That's it. And with that, we come to an end.
Thank you for tuning into the local Hillsborough Teen News.